we just dedicate those days to making content, and we always have like the best time afterwards. And I think that's important, is to make sure that you're having fun while doing it, because I know it could feel like work, because it is work. It really is. But to remind ourselves that it's just social media, and you're putting content out on your page that's for you or for a brand, but you want it to just be fun and people want to be entertained.
Stefanie Maegan, born and raised in Los Angeles, is a creative spirit who has found many artistic avenues. As the host and creator of Broke Girl Therapy podcast, she delves into dating, sex, relationships, and really captivating audiences by her storytelling. While building her podcast, Stefanie balanced multiple jobs, including a hair salon front desk job. Now, she's a full-time content creator working on her podcast and working alongside celebrity clients in creating captivating content on their social media platforms.
This episode is brought to you by Boulevard, the industry's first and only client experience platform. Boulevard is designed for the self-care community, helping businesses like yours unlock revenue, maximize efficiency, and deliver seamless experiences you and your clients will love. See for yourself why so many brands are making the switch. Head over to joinblvd.com/podcast to see a demo and get 10% off just for listening to today's podcast. Make your best investment yet. Go to joinblvd.com/podcast to learn more.
Stefanie, thank you so much for joining us. We're so excited to have you here today. So Stefanie is a celebrity in her own right, okay?
Barely.
So we are so excited to be talking to you about your incredible podcast and really learn from you when it comes to all of your marketing tips and all the strategies that you have implemented to help your own content go viral and be working with so many great folks out there. But before we dive into that, we want to get to know you a little bit. So please tell us, like, who are you? Tell us about Stefanie.
Oh my God, who the this is always like the most awkward question, because I'm like, who am I? Well, I host the podcast Broke Girl Therapy, and I used to work with you. You were my boss in a salon in West Hollywood, and you changed my life.
Hardly. Stop.
No, you really did. Because one, you hired me because I needed an extra job for money. And so I was able to use that money and start a podcast, because I started a podcast when I was working at that salon, which is now Broke Girl Therapy. And that was back in 2016. So here we are now. And I feel like I've just, I've done so much since then. And I feel like and you didn't fire me. So I'm just grateful. Because I was the worst. Well, yeah.
Okay, this is just the perfect example of how you need to separate the person from the work. I always loved Stefanie. The person didn't always love Stefanie, the receptionist, okay?
It's okay.
But listen, we aren't our jobs.
Yeah,
right?
I'm just a personality hire.
You are.
Now I've just implement that to what I do in my real life, because I just wasn't good at my job. And I say it all the time on my podcast. It's like I've been fired from more jobs that I've actually quit.
That's hilarious.
So from working at a boutique clothing store to a hair salon to like corporate jobs to everything. And so I think it's because I was just meant to do something for me and something that I need to like have fun with. Like I can't be restricted down. I need to like make every situation fun, and I think I just find that in the podcast and social media.
Absolutely. There's a saying where the universe will do for you what you can't do for yourself. So
Aww.
I think you losing those jobs were probably like the kick in the ass you needed to like go out there and actually do what you need to be doing. So
for sure.
you know.
And I think I even called you crying one time, because the salon job was like my second job.
Mm-hmm.
I got fired from my main job, and then I was like, I needed my second job to help with to pay my bills, and so you helped me with that. So I just want to say thank you. Shanalie's the best.
Oh my God, that's very sweet, and I'll pay you for saying that later. Like you'll get your fee for that shameless plug. So tell us, like, before you became a podcaster, you had a relationship with beauty, like in the beauty industry.
Yeah.
So like, what brought you to the beauty industry initially?
I guess I've always been interested in like hair and makeup and all that stuff, and I was working in fashion at one point. And then again, I was looking for a second job. The salon in West Hollywood was where I really was able to be introduced to the beauty industry. And at some point I was wanting to be like a hairstylist, like work in it. You know, I was very curious. And then I realized, oh wait, I think I just want to get my hair done and not actually do someone's hair. So yeah. I learned that quickly, but I did learn a lot just from all the stylists that have worked there, because I've realized like it's not just, you know, showing up every day at a salon and just doing hair and like booking appointments. It's a whole business. It's having to, you know, not just market the salon, but like market yourself as a stylist. So I think I really took a lot of those tips from the people that, you know, that we worked with, because there were so many successful people around us. So I think that did inspire me to just kind of like keep going, you know?
Yeah, we worked with some hustlers, like people were working so hard. So.
And then their clients were great too. So Absolutely. Then that was also kind of like, okay, like I want to be in this world where I get to be creative, and, you know, but also being a creative, you have to be a business owner. Mm-hmm. And so I learned that very quickly working at the salon.
Yeah, I think there's like this common misconception that you could just be like, oh, I'm a creative and that's the only thing I do. But now in this space in 2024, there's no such thing as being a creative without having the business knack, right? Like you need to understand your numbers. You need to understand how productive you are, how your content is performing. Mm-hmm. Like there numbers are involved in creativity too.
Yeah, and also like building your skill set, like being great at what you're doing and not just depending on like everything else, you know. But yeah, it all comes together, and it's a lot, but working at the salon, I think, was such a huge inspiration for me.
Oh, I love that. So tell us, like, what inspired you to start your podcast and start a career in marketing?
Well, girl, we got time, because this is like 8 years of like why. So basically why I started was, I think, going back to just who I was as a kid. Like I've always been, for instance, I would always steal like my parents' family like video camera, mm-hmm. and just would tell my brother, because he's kind of an actor and like a performer and a singer and does all this thing. I would always like kind of have him as my muse, and I would write skits and stuff like that and like make him perform it, and then I would like produce it, shoot it, and even act in it, you know. Hilarious. So I like loved being in front of the camera and behind camera. And so yeah, so I think that was just like something that was always in my soul. Like I've always wanted to kind of express myself in some sort of way. And when I was in my 20s, I think it was around like, I mean, I don't want to age myself because I'm a cute 33 right now. But when I was like 25 or whenever I started, I was just going through so many just awful relationships and situationships. Mm-hmm. Like I couldn't keep a man to save my life, you know, like I was like, why aren't they saying like, what's wrong with me, you know? And so I needed something to just kind of like talk about it, but also make light of it. Yep. And, you know, I heard about podcasting and I realized that, you know, oh, anyone could just do this. I don't need to like get a network. I don't need to be signed to like a record label or whatever. Like I could just create this content myself. And so I just started looking up how to make a podcast and started, you know, I didn't even have like a MacBook or a laptop at the time. So I you know, would borrow friends and stuff like that. And so you just kind of built this brand. Brockwell Therapy made sense to me because it was like therapy's too expensive. I got kicked off my dad's insurance, so I was like, I really can't afford therapy. And so and also like it's a play on words, like broken, like I'm broken, I'm trying to figure this out. And so I did this podcast and I would interview exes or guys I was hooking up with at that time and just figure out why they couldn't commit. And then from there, I just started having my friends on, and it just really became like this journey of just documenting me over these years of just dating and trying to like learn about myself. So yeah.
Yeah, so
That's
I
basically the
know.
summary.
Yeah, no, it's great. And I know to some, they might like look at your like, social accounts and be like, oh, she's like an overnight success. But, you were hustling it up and doing it for so long. So
Yeah.
tell us about some of those challenges you faced when you were early on, like just doing things on your own, like borrowing computers and whatnot.
Yeah, so like I had a friend, like help me out. We did have a falling out, but that's a story for another time. But she did help me out. Again, she had a computer, and then I like saved up money for like a microphone, and it was just like this one microphone. I didn't even have chairs in my basement that I lived in, so me and my guests would just like sit on the floor, and we would just have this mic, and we would just talk. Like this was just crumbs. Like I would like literally just had nothing. But I was like trying to make do with what I got. But over time, I just like I'm working 2 jobs. Like I'm investing. I'm working and hustling to make money to invest and to get more equipment. Yeah, so I think that was the biggest one, was just like not having finances to do it. But then I wanted it so bad. Like I just loved doing it. Like it just work didn't fulfill me. Like being a receptionist, working my other job just wasn't fulfilling, but it was helping me fuel what I really wanted to do. So I was willing to work 7 days a week to do this podcast. So over time, like, using the money that I would make to invest back into the show. 8 years later, the struggles look a little different.
Right.
It's like it's almost just kind of like having to compare numbers. I think it's more analytical, but I'm like, damn, but 8 years ago I was even so blessed to even have these numbers, so I think now it's just kind of like, okay, this episode did really well this one time, why are my episodes doing well, so it's always trying to like keep the consistency of like having your followers and keeping them engaged and stuff like that. I think does become like a struggle, but it's as long as I'm having fun, it makes it worth it.
Absolutely. So it's almost like once you've hit, because you've gotten millions of views now on a lot of your content. So like you've set the bar so high for yourself.
Yes.
So you're like competing against you at this point is what it sounds like.
Yeah. Like before the bar was just so low. I was just trying to survive.
Trying to get to the bar.
I was just trying to get to a bar. But now it's definitely like I'm so blessed to have seen so much success with it. So now it's like having to maintain that success, and I'll be honest, it's not always just like going up. Like there's moments where it's like you're going up and you're on a high, but then like there's moments where it's really quiet, and so it really just it goes up and down. But I think that's just the beauty of like working for yourself and doing something that you love, is that you always want to be challenged. You can't, doing one thing isn't always going to be what works for the next time, so it's always like, how do I get more creative to make this like take it to the next level?
Definitely. So I know our listeners are like dying to know, like everyone wants to know how to go viral. I think, and you're like a great person to talk to about that. So tell us a little bit about the first time you realized your content was like blowing up and doing really well.
Yeah. So like I said, I started the podcast 2016. Social media looked completely different. There wasn't any TikTok. I think when I started at that time, Instagram stories just became a thing. Like it was, it was all about Snapchat, whatever. So it was really hard for a smaller and newer creator to go viral. But again, I wasn't thinking that. I was like, I just want to make what I love. So, with that, I started doing, video with my audio podcast. And years before TikTok, which was in 2020, I would create clips from the episodes and I put on my Instagram stories for like my friends, because it was only my friends following me, for my friends to see and hopefully get traction. And there was just from like word of mouth and like my community, and I think they would love to see the consistency too. And so that I was creating these like batch of content. And so when TikTok happened, I remember my friend was like, Steph, like you need to get on TikTok. And at that time it was just like Gen Zers dancing, and I'm like, I don't know if I want to do that. You know what I mean?
Like, are you ready to do the dance?
Right. Like, I'm not really ready to do the renegade. Like,
Yeah.
I don't want to do I don't, like, I love to dance, but like, it's not for me. But I was like, let me just go on, claim my handle. And then I was like, well, I have all this content from years, let me just put it up. And so I did. And then it just instantly, like, it was like going to 15,000 to 60,000 to like eventually a video hit like 1 million. I was like, what?
Hello? Yeah.
And it just because back then it was so hard to like, that viral moment, and not that it was impossible, but it just looked different, and I think now what I love about like TikTok and like how Instagram is even reformatted is that it's really helped a lot of just like independent creators blow up. So I'm grateful for that.
Are there things that people should know about Instagram and TikTok as they're like stepping out on their own, putting out, whether it's their salon or med spa, and like trying to get, clients through there? Like, what should they know about these platforms that people are heavily using to find their next, like, whether it's a hair salon or what? Like, I feel like we use it as like our new search tool. So what should the folks listening in like look for?
Yeah, I would say definitely consistency is one of it. I think TikTok and Instagram really do reward you when you are posting a lot. So I would say, and also I feel like it's trial and error too. Like sometimes you could post something and you're like, I think this could do well, and it doesn't. But then the video that you thought wouldn't do well does do well. So I think just kind of using it as a tool, because the algorithm changes so much. So if you're consistent and you're putting out content, you're able to kind of catch what the algorithm wants, and then it gives you a higher chance to even catch the algorithm, So it's really hard to like answer the question like how to go viral, like what is it that that you need to do, but it's almost kind of like a gamble.
Yeah.
So you always want to just like, that's why I say like be consistent, and also know and keep yourself aware of what other people also are putting out,
Right.
And then just try to just like higher your chances of doing it, and also just post something that you love. Like, I think just thinking about it too much sometimes could really take away the joy, but it's Instagram and TikTok sometimes is such a gamble. So it's really just like, that's why you got to keep going, because just because one video didn't do well doesn't mean another video won't. So you just can't get discouraged by it.
Yeah, no, that's great. I think there's a lot of people that are like stuck between authenticity and then trying to do these trends.
Yeah.
And I know you work with tons of folks that do both, right? Where they
Yeah.
are authentic. They do, play with the trends and have fun with it. So where's that middle ground, right? Like, how do you help someone stay true to themselves, their brand, their business, but also tap into some of the fun stuff that's going out there on, the social platforms?
So what I do for one of my social media clients, she does do a lot of different trends, but we try not to make it so just redundant of what other people are doing. We try to make it into something that makes sense to her. So she's a client that loves fashion, that loves who is like funny, so we really try to tap into that, and so if we're doing a dance, okay, let's switch it up to make it funny, because she's so good at that, and she's, and her audience loves to see it. So I think, you could do the trends, and honestly they work. I will say they really do, but use it to where it looks like you're just having fun, and I think people really could feel that. And so when it does feel super scripted and staged or inauthentic, like, people know, like, we all have instincts. And so I think just if you're having fun doing it, there you go. That's how you know. And so I even remind myself with that too, with like when I post clips from social media, I'm like, do I actually like this clip? Am I laughing from this clip? Am I, like, do I agree or disagree with this? So I try to just make sure like I'm feeling something towards this and not just doing it because I feel like I have to post.
Yeah, it's almost like if you were stumbling upon your social media, how would you take that information, right? Like,
well, I mean, here's the thing though, like doing, the celebrity client, like everything is so produced. Like, it is a production to do social media, but is it still fun? Even though, yeah, you have a script or you have a microphone and there's lighting and you hired a whole crew. Like, are you still having a good time doing it? Are you putting out content that like makes sense to you? Like that's just what matters.
Yeah, I love that. Like authenticity all the way. Yeah, and you're right. I feel like people can sniff out, especially now in 2024 and the younger generations like Gen Z. They can smell. It's like blood in the water. They know when you're faking it.
Exactly.
I
when
think
you're trying too hard.
Totally. I think millennials were really like pumped that like fake it till you make it type stuff, which I think, there's a lot of that where it's like, be the person you want to be as much as you can and try and step into that as you're building, but like authentically do that. Like don't try and be somebody else.
Yes, exactly. And I just think, the weirder the better, honestly.
I love that.
Like it's just for me, I don't know. I feel like I used to be so scared of talking about my sexuality or talking about even the fact that I've had sex or something like that. But, doing the show has helped me like open up about it. And I never come off as like, hey, I'm a sex expert or I'm an expert at dating. Like I come off as like, I love talking about this, but I don't know what the I'm doing, and that's why people gravitate towards the show and the content is because it's authentic. You're not trying to be this thing, just to prove something. Who gives a
They can feel you're genuine and they're learning with you.
Yeah, exactly.
I love that.
This episode is brought to you by Boulevard, the first and only client experience platform purpose-built for appointment-based self-care businesses. Built to relieve stress, not create it, Boulevard is designed to help you elevate your client experience and infuse simplicity and beauty into your day. To help you enjoy all the amazing features Boulevard offers, today's listeners can save 10%. To claim your offer, head over to joinblvd.com/podcast.
So what advice do you have for folks about like your creative process? I think people would love to know, like from an expert, can you walk us through, like, give us a little taste of your creative process and how do you plan some of your content? How do you bring some of these things to life? I think for some folks, like, it feels like climbing Mount Everest when they think about saying, like, you were like, post as often as you can, post every day. And that sounds like, even for myself, I work in marketing as well. And I'm like, oh my God, every day? Yeah, I'd love to understand how you tackle some of that.
So there's two different ways I go about it. One with me and the show, and there's with like the client that I have. With me and the show, it's obviously based off of real life situations. So I never really pick a topic. I just honestly, I'm very disorganized and I have ADHD. So to be not as structured is what actually helps. I'm only structured when it comes to like posting and editing or whatever, but when it comes to having a conversation and what content I'm going to put out or talk about or what guests I have, I just try to go off of like, well, who do I want to talk to today, or who do I want to talk to this week, and so, or what do I want to talk about, what do I need to get off my chest? So I really just try to tap into me and what I feel like talking about and go from there. And I think as far as like the lighting and all that stuff, obviously I have structure towards it and all that stuff. And production, I like, I put it on my calendar. I have a Google calendar of, what episodes come out, what week and stuff like that. So that I'm like organized with. But as far as what I want to talk about, I'm just freestyling most of the time. But as far as like my social media client, so what we do is like, I create like a shot list and I spend a day or two just like studying what's on the internet right now. And so I'm scrolling. Sometimes I take a nap in between because it makes me tired, because you're scrolling while like lay down.
It'll do it.
Yeah. So I'm scrolling. I'm, taking things down. I'm taking note of all the different trends, the different, just what people are talking about, music, culture, whatever. And so I create a shot list of stuff to it's not even stuff that we're copying. It's just really like a starting point. Like this is
some inspo.
It's some inspo. Yeah. And so I create like maybe like 10 things. And then I present it to her and I show her like, all the things that are happening on the internet. This is what I feel like this could work for you. This could be really fun. And so we'll pick, maybe 5 or something that day, and we'll batch it out. We'll batch it out, and we probably meet like every week or every other week. And it's really just coming together and making sure you dedicate those days of just like, okay, I'm gonna be really creative this day, and so we come in kind of with the plan, and then as we're shooting it, we're just like, okay, let's do this, let's do that, and we don't try to like pigeonhole ourselves to like just doing this one thing. Sometimes we do a video inspired by one thing and it completely just takes a left turn into like something else, and we're like, okay, let's go with that.
See where it goes.
Yeah, like, and I try, again, going back to just not structuring it too much. Like, I just try to be like, okay, we could talk about this or we could do this, but let's just see where it takes us when we're shooting it, when we're, how we're feeling, what's making us laugh. And we just dedicate those, days to making content. And we always have like the best time afterwards. And I think that's important, is to make sure that you're having fun while doing it, because I know it could feel like work, because it is. It is work. It really is. But to remind ourselves that it's just social media, and you're putting content out on your page that's for you or for a brand, but you want it to just be fun, and people want to be entertained.
Absolutely.
So I think I try to make those like content shoot days just a fun day to be creative and to not be so set on something, and just let our minds run wild.
I love that.
Yeah.
So, like, having structure in the right places around like posting and editing and research, it sounds like, right? Research goes into it, but then allowing yourself the space to have a little creative freedom and go on a tangent and do that. You never know what'll come out of it, sounds like.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's like, those are always the best ones, is when you're just, like, you're intentional, but you're having fun, and it's, and then later on in post, just figure it out.
Yeah.
And that's why I love editing too, because I'm just like, I'll just figure it out later. Like, let me just have fun now, and then later on we'll figure it out. So
together.
Yeah.
Are there like any tools that like you love like working with when it comes to like your planning or editing and things like that for some of our listeners?
I do love my Google Calendar. Like, I love her. And then with editing, I love Adobe Premiere. She's my best friend. I'm with her all the time. Like, I sometimes dream like I'm in Adobe Premiere, which is so
hilarious.
weird. Like, that's how it's
like
I
Matrix, but like Adobe world.
Right. And I'm just, I don't know how, whatever. But it's the Adobe Premiere is my girl. I used to do Final Cut, but I think once you know Adobe Premiere, you feel like you could do a little bit more.
That's
so
amazing.
Yeah.
So what's one unexpected aspect of creating viral content that most people might not know? Like, what's come along with having this many eyes on your content?
It's like an amazing high, because you get so many notifications and like a lot of love, but then it also is like f***ed up, because like with more love comes hate.
Oof.
And I've been called Shamu like so many times. Yeah. Someone just called me a solid 4 in my comment section 5 minutes ago.
Why are they following you? That's what
right.
I
And I like look at their profile, because I'm like trying to block them, because I'm like, you don't need to see this then. And then I'm like, it says like follow back because they follow me. And I'm like, whatever. So it's just, there's, like, there's a lot of hate on the internet. I think we all know that. There's so much negativity on there. And so, I try to remind myself to just separate myself from that, and that, they're making the engagement higher. So, but then also there is a place and time where if it's not worth your mental health, just take it down. Like, I'm all about just like archiving it, take it down. It's really not worth it, if it really is messing with you. So yeah, so I think just so many people are so like focused on going viral, and it is an incredible thing, but also like mentally prepare yourself for the hate that comes with it, and people doubting your work, people doubting your skill set, people judging your every move. So before you get to that point, I think just know who you are,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so one more question with I think there's so many businesses out there. Like even I was like a manager like this too, and I was working at hair salons where I think like, oh my gosh, like I have to be working with influencers. I have to be working with these types of folks. Like, you know, I have to be giving them free stuff, like and all this stuff. Like what would you say to folks that are like on the fence about influencer marketing or trying to tap into that avenue? Like, do you think it's worth it? You know, what should folks like really look out for if they decide to take that leap?
I think it's worth it. I will say, you know, like a following count, yes, matters, but it's more so like, what is their relationship with their audience? You know, because I've even had a few years ago when my, you know, following was a lot lower, I did have a brand deal and it did really well. And I remember the brand was telling me like, you know, yours did better compared to the other, you know, influencer that we worked with that had 1 million followers.
Oh, wow.
You know, and it's because the relationship that I have with my audience is like, oh, they trust me, you know, and it, you know, with what I'm selling to them or what I'm influencing them on is something that makes sense and something that like I believed in, you know, so just making sure that an influencer is there for the right reasons. I know that it could get really exciting to see them like, oh my God, they have 1 million followers. Like it should have all of this impact. But, you know, I think what really matters is the relationship they have with their followers. Like, do you see that people listen and care? And do they, you know, and are they authentic? Going back to being authentic, like, are they calculated, saturated, you know? So I think not just focusing on the following account, but just, you know, like their presence in the relationship.
How folks engage with them, essentially.
Yeah, because there's so many influencers now, and there's so many people, you know, doing brand deals and stuff, and, you know, there's always someone trying to sell you something. But, and even for me, like, I don't like to just tell my followers about a brand that I don't believe in, you know, it just doesn't make sense. So I get excited, like, telling them something that, like, oh, like, I use this, like, I love this, guys, like, this is great, you know? And so, and I'm glad that they give the product to me to try that, because I don't like selling or, you know, influencing or making a video on something that, like, I've never even tried, because that's just no-go. So I like to try things first and then make the video. So I think it does work. It's just being particular on who you decide to work with.
Yeah, don't be blinded by like the big following. Some of your micro influencers might even do you better sometimes.
Yeah. Sometimes, the smaller ones will probably make more of an impact because they're like, oh, they're not huge, you know? So what they're saying is probably has a little bit more value. Trust, yeah.
Trust is huge. So
exactly.
All right. Well, the next couple of questions we ask everyone, so this is gonna be fun. So we call this the good, the bad, the ugly. Like, we want to hear some tea. Like, give us a story. Like, whether it's a personal horror story, it could be something from the salons. It could be, you know, working with a client. You know, it could be an achievement, a heartwarming, literally anything.
Yeah.
Like, we love to hear some insider info.
I just texted my boyfriend to ask because I can't think of an embarrassing story, but he just thought of this moment because it pissed him off. And I think he's traumatized from it. So I mentioned I have ADHD. Sometimes, you know, we forget, or sometimes we just don't think about things. I don't know. So I was rushing to get ready, and we were going to our friend's wedding. This is when we lived in Oakland. So we like live in Oakland, and you know, in East Oakland, you know.
I know. Shout out to Oakland.
East Oakland. I loved Oakland, but you know, it's East Oakland. And so I'm rushing to get ready, and we're going to Fresno for the wedding. So we run out the door, we go, and we drive over to Fresno, which is like a 2.5 hour drive. It's a drive, it's far. And so we're in Fresno at this wedding, and I'm thinking, did I close the door? The front door. And I'm just sitting there, whole wedding. I'm not telling my boyfriend because it's like we're trying to have a good time. He's, you know, we're vibing. And so by the time it gets to like the end of the wedding, I was like, Brian, do you remember if I shut the front door? He's like, oh, we gotta go. So he just like, he literally like, we didn't even say bye to anyone except like one of his friends. He's like, we gotta go. So then we like drive to Fresno for like 2.5 hours, just silent. And we get there. I didn't close it.
All your stuff was gone.
No. Okay. To be fair, there's 2 doors.
Okay.
There's one metal one
Okay.
and one like is the actual door. I closed the metal one, but
Okay.
the other door was like wide open, but you could see everything inside. And like in the Bay, you know, people are always scared of like being robbed.
Yeah.
So, like,
'cause people are always getting robbed.
Yes.
Hello.
People are like, everyone gets robbed. Everyone
Yeah.
gets.
Unfortunately, it's happening a lot.
It's
Bay Area,
unfortunately.
we're thinking of you.
Yeah. And like prayers
Oh
up for the
gosh,
Bay because
seriously.
everyone gets robbed.
Yeah, and it wasn't always like that. I'm a Bay Area girl, okay, so I'm not trying to give the Bay a bad name, but there's some, you know, little petty theft going on right now.
It's a
okay?
problem right now.
Yeah,
It is. Like, we need to raise awareness.
We do. We could do better.
So,
We're gonna
yeah.
do better.
So yeah, but so like you could see everything, and so that door wasn't closed. Okay, embarrassing. I don't know, but that's the only thing my worker thought of.
No, you're good. Don't worry.
I did have a story, but you didn't let me.
Well, it's been there, done that. Apparently, on this podcast, everyone's doing it these days.
Yeah.
So, all right. Thank you, Stephanie. Our final question will be, this is another one that we're asking everyone. How do you define success? I know it looks different for a lot of people, so we'd love to hear like what you consider real success.
I think what defines success is, I mean, this is cliche to say, but like all the small wins. I think sometimes I even forget those, and I'm like, wait, why am I not Alex Cooper with a 60 million Spotify deal? But I'm like, wait, not that I'm not incapable of that. However, but look at everything that I've done, you know, from building a show to even just being consistent is a small win, you know, and to be able to make money from it, to be able to like have the skill sets. So I think for me, like, what measures success is just everything that you do along the way. And I think to me, that's what made me feels like fulfilled and successful, is that I'm able to commit to something and achieve everything that I want to do with it. So
I love it. You
Yeah.
did your own thing, girl.
yeah, I'm still waiting for like a rich girl therapy spinoff.
Ooh,
That will be the next level of success. But, you know.
Hilarious. It's like your like Sex in the City version,
Right,
of
but like
Broke Girl
realistic.
Therapy. Yeah,
Yeah, 'Cause-
exactly.
yeah.
Hilarious. Well, Stephanie, thank you so much. It's always such a pleasure to see
love
you, talk to
you.
you. I love you.
I love you so much.
Look how
y'all.
far we've come.
Thank you for not firing me and to, you know, inviting me on the show.
Of
It's
course.
a full circle
We're
moment.
happy to have you. We appreciate all your knowledge and thank you again for joining us.
Love you. Bye.